He had everything he could ever possibly have wanted. It was just one little catch. The Happiest Creature by Jack Williamson. Read by Karl. The collector puffed angrily into the commandant's office in the quarantine station on the moon of Earth. He was a heavy, hairless man with shrewd, little ice-green eyes sunk deep in fat yellow flesh. He had a genial smile when he was getting what he wanted. Just now, he wasn't. Here we've come a good 100 light years, and you can see who I am. He riffled the psionic identification papers under the commandant's nose. I intend to collect at least one of these queer anthropoids, in spite of all your silly red tape. The shimmering film attested his distinguished scientific attainments. He was authorized to gather specimens for the greatest zoo in the inhabited galaxy. The quarantine service has been officially requested to expedite his search. I see. The commandant nodded respectfully, trying to conceal a weary frown. The delicate business of safeguarding Earth's embryonic culture had taught him to deal cautiously with such unexpected threats. Your credentials are certainly impressive. We'll give you whatever help we can. Won't you sit down? The collector wouldn't sit down. He was thoroughly annoyed with the commandant. He doubted loudly that the quarantine regulations had ever been intended to apply to such a backward planet as Earth, and he proposed to take his specimen without any further fiddle-faddle. The commandant, who came from a civilization which valued courtesy and reserve, gasped in spite of himself at the terms that came through his psionic translator, but he attempted to restrain his mounting impatience. Actually, these creatures are human, he answered firmly. We are stationed here to protect them. Human? The conductor snorted. What if never even got this far off their stinking little planet? A pretty degenerate lot, the commandant agreed regretfully. But the human origins have been well established, and you'll have to leave them alone. The collector studied the commandant's stern-lipped face and modified his voice. All we need is a single specimen, and we won't injure that. He recovered his jovial smile. On the contrary, the creature we pick up will be the luckiest one on the planet. I've been in this game a good many centuries, and I know what I'm talking about. Wild animals in their native environments are invariably diseased. They're in constant physical danger, generally undernourished, and always more or less frustrated sexually. But the beasts we take will receive their most expert attention in every way. A hearty chuckle shook his oily yellow jowls. Why, if you allowed us to advertise for a specimen, half the population would volunteer. You can't advertise, the commandant said flatly. Our first duty here is to guard this young creature from any outside influence that might cripple its natural development. Don't upset yourself, the fat man shrugged. We're undercover experts. One specimen will never know it's being collected, if that's the way you want it. It isn't, the commandant rose abruptly. I'll give your party every legitimate assistance, but if I discover you have tried to abduct one of these people, I'll confiscate your ship. Keep your precious pets, the collector grunted ungraciously. We'll just go ahead with our field studies. Live specimens aren't really essential anyhow. Our technicians have prepared very authentic displays with only animated replicas. Very well, the commandant managed a somewhat sour smile. With that understanding, you may land. He assigned 2 inspectors to assist the collector and made certain that the quarantine regulations were respected. Undercover experts, they went on to Earth ahead of the expedition, and met the interstellar ship a few weeks later at a rendezvous on the night side of the planet. The ship returns to the moon, while the outsiders spent several months traveling on the planet, making psionic records and collecting specimens for the unprotected species. The inspector reported no effort to violate the covenants. Everything went smoothly, to the night when the ship came back to pick up the expedition. Every avoidable hazard had been painstakingly avoided. The collector and his party brought the captured specimens to the pickup point in native vehicles, traveling as Barstow Brothers wild animal shows. The ship dropped to meet them at midnight on an uninhabited desert plateau. Thousands of such pickups had been made without incident, but that night, things went wrong. A native anthropoid had just escaped from a place of confinement. Though his angered tribesmen pursued, he had outrun them in a series of stolen vehicles. They blocked the roads, but he got away across the desert. When his last vehicle stalled, he crossed a range of dry hills on foot in the dark. In unforeseen danger, he blundered too near the waiting interstellar ship. His pursuers discovered his abandoned car, and halted the disguised outsiders to search their trucks and warn them that a dangerous conflict was loose. To keep the natives away from the ship, the inspectors invented a tale of a frightened man on a horse, running riding wildly in the opposite direction. They guided native officers back to where they'd seen the imaginary horsemen and kept them occupied until dawn. By that time, the expedition was on the ship, native trucks and all, and safely back in space. The natives never recaptured their prisoner. Through that one chance in the million that had never been eliminated by even the most competent undercover work, he gotten aboard the interstellar ship. The future advancer boy was a young male. Physically, he appeared human enough, even almost handsome. Lean from the prison regime, he carried himself defiantly erect. Some old injury had left an ugly scar across his cheek, and his thin lips had a snarling twist, but he had a poised alertness and a kind of wary grace. He was even sufficiently human to possess clothing and a name. His filthy garments were made of twisted animal and vegetable fibers and the skin of butchered animals. His name was Casey James. He was armed like some jungle carnivore, however, with a sharpened steel blade. His body, like his whole planet, was contaminated with parasitic organisms. He was quivering with fear and exhaustion, like any hunted animal, the night he blundered upon the ship. The pangs of his hunger had passed, but the bullet wound in his left arm was nagging him with unalleviated pain. In the darkness, he didn't even see the ship. The trucks were stopped on the road. The driver of the last had left it when he went ahead to help to adjust the loading ramp. The anthropoid climbed on the unattended truck and hid himself under a tarp before it was driven aboard. The way must have been puzzled and alarmed to find the ship was no native conveyance. He kept hidden in the cargo hold for several days. With his animal craftiness, he milked one of the specimen animals for food and slept in the cab of an empty truck. Malignant organisms were multiplying in his wounded arm, however, and pain finally drove him out of hiding. He approached the attendants who were feeding the animals, threatened them with his knife, and demanded medical care. They disarmed him without difficulty and took him to the veterinary ward. The collector found him there, already scrubbed and disinfected, sitting up in his bed. "Where are we headed for?" he wanted to know. He nodded without apparent surprise when the collector told him the mission and the destination of the ship. "Your undercover work ain't quite so hot as you seem to think," he said. "I've seen your flying saucers myself." "Flying saucers?" The collector sniffed disdainfully. "They aren't anything of ours. Most of them are nothing but reflected images of surface lights produced by atmospheric inversions. The quarantine people are getting out a book to explain that to your fellow creatures. A good one for the cops," the anthropoid grinned. "I bet they're still stretching their dumb skulls over how I dodged them." He paused to finger his bandaged arm, in evident appreciation of the civilized care he had received. "When do we get to this wonderful zoo of yours?" "You don't," the collector told him. "I did want exactly such specimen as you are, but those stuffy bureaucrats wouldn't let me take one." "So you gotta get rid of me?" The silent translator revealed the beast's dangerous desperation even before his hard body stiffened. "Wait!" The collector retreated hastily. "Don't alarm yourself. We won't hurt you. We couldn't destroy you, even to escape detection. No civilized man can destroy a human life." "Nothing to it," the creature grunted. "But if you're going to toss me out in space, then what?" "You put us in an awkward situation," the old man scowled with annoyance. "If the quarantine people catch us with you aboard, they cancel our permits and seize everything we've got. Somehow we've got to put you back." "But I can't go back." The anthropoid licked his lips nervously. "I just gut knifed the guard. Throw me down this time, it's the chair for sure." The translator made it clear that the chair was an elaborate torture machine in which convicted criminals were put to a ceremonial death, according to a primitive tribal code of blood revenge. "So you gotta take me wherever you're going." The creature's dark, frightened eyes studied the collector cunningly. "If you put me back, you'll be killing me." "On the contrary." The collector's thick upper lip twitched slightly, and a slow smile oozed across his wide, putty face, warming everything except his frosty little eyes. "Human life is sacred. We can arrange to make you the safest creature of your kind, and also the happiest, as long as you're willing to observe two necessary conditions." "Huh?" The anthropoid squinted. "What you mean?" "You understand that we've violated the quarantine in allowing you to get aboard," the collector explained patiently. "We, and not you, will be held responsible in case of detection, but we need your help to conceal the violation. We're prepared to do everything for you if you will make and keep two simple promises, such as, first, promise that you won't talk about us." "Easy enough," the beast grinned. "Nobody'd believe me anyway." "The quarantine people would." The collector's cold eyes narrowed. "African agents are going to look for rumors of any violation." Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut, the creature shrugged. What else? Second, you must promise not to kill again. The anthropoid stiffened. What's to you? We can't allow you to destroy any more of your fellow beings. Since you're now on our hands, the guilt would fall on us. The collector scowled at him. Promise? The anthropoid chewed thoughtfully at his thin lower lip. His tossed eyes looked away at nothing. The collector caught a faint reflection of his thoughts to the translator and stepped back uneasily. The cops are behind me, he muttered. I gotta take care of myself. Don't worry. The collector snapped his fat fingers. We can get you a pardon. Just say you won't kill again. No. Lean muscles tightened in the anthropoid's jaw. There's one certain man I gotta knock off. That's the main reason I busted out the pen. Who is this enemy? The collector frowned. Why is he so dangerous? But he ain't so dangerous, the beast grunted. I just hate his guts. I don't understand. I always wanted to kick his face in. The creature's thin lips snarled. Ever since we were kids together, back in Los Verdedas. You've never received any correct treatment for such a monstrous obsession? The collector shook his head incredulously, but the anthropoid ignored him. His name is Gabriel Melendez, the creature muttered. Just a dirty greaser, but he makes out like he's just as good as me. I had the money for a rich aunt, and he was hungry half the time, but he'd never stay in this place. Even when he was just a snotty-nosed kid, I knew I could beat him because I was bigger. He was always trying to fight me. The beast bared his decaying teeth. Aimed to kill him before I threw. Killing is never necessary, the collector protested uneasily. Not for civilized men. But I ain't so civilized, the anthropoid grinned bleakly. I am to gut knife him just like I did the dumb guard. An incredible obsession. The collector recoiled from the grim-lipped beast and the idea of such raw violence. What's this creature done to you? He took the girl I wanted. The beast caught a rasping breath, and he put the cops on me. I think it was him, because I got caught on a month after I stuck up the filling station where he works. I think he recognized me, and I aimed to get him. No, but I will. The anthropoid slipped out of bed and started tearing over the fat man defiantly, his free hand clenched and quivering. You can't stop me, not with all your fancy gadgets. The beast glared down into the collector's bright little eyes. They looked back without blinking, and the lack of brows or lashes made them seem coldly reptilian. Abruptly, the animal subsided. Okay. He spat deliberately on the spotless floor and grinned at the collector's involuntary start. What's it worth to let him live? The collector shook off his shocked expression. We're undercover experts and we know your planet. A pervasive smile crept across his gross face. Resources are quite adequate to take care of anything you demand. Just give your word not to kill again, or talk about us, and tell us what you want. The anthropoid rubbed his hairy jaw as if attempting to think. First, I want the girl, he muttered. Carmen Quintarna was her name before she married Gabe. She may give you a little trouble, because she didn't like me a bit. Though I called my ass out once, even before I shot an old man at the filling station. His white teeth flashed in a wolfish grin. Think you can make her go for me? I think we can, the collector nodded blandly. We can arrange nearly anything. You better arrange that. The anthropoid's thin brown hound nodded again, and I'll make her sorry she ever looked at Gabe. You don't intend to injure her? That's my business, the beast laughed. Just take me back. There's a little adobe town down close to the border. The anthropoid listed the rest of his requirements and crossed his heart in a ritual gesture of his tribe to solemnize his promises. He knew when the interstellar craft landed again, but had to stay aboard a long time afterwards, living like a prisoner in his sterile little cell, while he waited for the outsiders to complete their underground arrangements for his return. He was fuming with impatience, stalking around his windowless room like a caved carnivore when the collector finally unlocked the door. You're driving me nuts, he growled at the hairless outsider. What's the holdup? The quarantine people, the collector shrugged. We had to manufacture some new excuse for every move we made, but I don't think I ever suspected anything. And here you are. He dragged a heavy piece of primitive luggage in the room and straightened up beside it, puffing and mopping at his broad, wet face. Open it up, he wheezed. You see we intend to keep our part of the bargain. Don't forget yours. The anthropoid dropped his knees to burrow eagerly through the garments and the simple paper documents in the bag. He looked up with a scowl. Where is it? He snapped. You'll find everything, the fat man panted. Your pardon papers, $10,000 in currency, 40,000 in cashier's checks, the clothing you specified. But where's the gun? Everything has been arranged. You will never need it. The collector shifted on his feet uncomfortably. I've been hoping you might change your mind about... I gotta protect myself. You'll never be attacked. You said you'd give me a gun. We did. The collector shrugged unhappily. You may have it, if you insist, when you leave the ship. Better get into your new clothing now. We want to take off again in half an hour. The yellow Cadillac convertible, he demanded, was waiting in the dark at the bottom of the ramp, his chrome trim shimmering faintly. The collector walked with him down the airlock to the car and handed him a heavy little package. Now, don't turn on the headlamps, the yellow man cautioned him. Just wait here for daylight. You'll see the Albuquerque Highway then, not a mile east. Turn right to your town. We've arranged everything to keep you very happy there, so long as you don't attempt to betray us. Don't worry, he grinned in the dark. Don't worry a minute. He slid into the car and clicked on the parking lights. The instrument panel lit up like a Christmas tree. He settled himself luxuriously at the wheel, appreciated sniffing the expensive new car scents of leather and rubber and enamel. Don't you worry, Butterguts, he muttered. You'll never know. The ramp was already lifting back into the sailor ship when he looked up. The bald man waved at him and vanished. The airlock thudded softly shut. The great disc took off into the night silently, like something falling upward. The beast sat grinning in the car. Quite a deal, he was thinking. Everything he sought to ask for. All for just a couple of semi-promises that couldn't make him keep. He already had most of his pay, and old Clabberguts was soon be 40,000 miles away, or however far it was out to the stars. Nobody had ever been so lucky. They had fixed his teeth, put him in a $100 suit, stuffed his pockets with the good cigars. He unwrapped one of the cigars, bit off the end, lit it with the automatic lighter, and inhaled luxuriously. He had everything. Or did he? A sudden uncertainty struck him as dawn began to break. First gray shapes that came out of the dark seemed utterly strange, and he was suddenly afraid the outsiders had double-crossed him. Maybe they hadn't really brought him back to Earth after all. Maybe they marooned him on some foreign planet where he'd never find Carmen and Gabe. With a gasp of alarm, he snapped on the headlights. The white beams washed away all that terrifying strangeness and left only a few harmless clumps of yucca and mesquite. He slumped back against the cushions, laughing weakly. Now he could see the familiar peaks of Dos Lobos jutting up like jagged teeth, blacking against the green glass sky. He switched off the headlights, started the motor, and eased the swaying car across the brown hummocks towards the dawn. In a few minutes, he found the highway. Jose's Oasis, one-stop service, 8 miles ahead. He grimaced at the sign derisively. What if he had got his 20 years for sticking up the Oasis and shooting down old Jose? Who cared now if his mother and aunt spent their last grubby dimes playing the warriors to keep him out of the chair? And Carmen, what if he had spat in his face at the trial? The outsiders would take care of everything. Or what if they hadn't? Cautiously, he slowed the long car and pulled off the pavement where he curved into the valley. Spring rains must have already come, because the rocky slopes were all splashed with wildflowers and tinted green with new grass. Huge old cottonwoods along the river were just coming into leaf, delicately green. The valley looked as kind as his old mother's face when she was still alive. The little town by the river seemed clean and lovely as he remembered Carmen. Even the sky was shining like a blue glass bowl, since the outsiders assembled washed and sterilized it. Maybe they had. They could do anything except kill a man. He chuckled, thinking the way old Baldy had made him cross his heart. Maybe the towel-gutted fool had really thought they would make him keep his promise. What's some kind of funny business about a package that was supposed to be a gun? He ripped it open. There on the carton was the automatic he demanded, a .45, with an extra ammunition clip and 2 boxes of ammo. It looked all right, flat and black and deadly in his hand. He loaded it and stepped out of the car to test it. He was aiming at an empty whiskey bottle beside the pavement when he heard a mockingbird singing in the nearest cottonwood. He shot at the bird instead, and grinned when it dissolved into a puff of brown feathers. That'll be Gabe. His hard lips curled sardonically. coming at me like a mad dog, if anybody ever wants to know. I had to stop him to save my own hide. He drove on across the river bridge into Verdantes. The outsiders had been here, he knew, because the dirt streets were all swept clean, and all the wooden parts of the low adobe buildings were bright with new paint. And all he could smell was the fragrances of coffee and hot bread when he passed the Esperanza Cafe. Those good odors wet his dry mouth with saliva, but he didn't stop to eat. With the automatic lying ready beside him on the street, he pulled into the Oasis. The place looked empty at first, and he thought for a moment that everybody was hiding from him. As he sat watching and waiting, crouched under the wheel, he had time to notice that all the shattered glass had been neatly replaced. Even the marks of his bullets on the walls had been covered with new plaster. And the whole station was shining with fresh paint, like everything else in town. He reached for the gun when he saw the dark, slight boy coming from the grease rack, wiping his hands on a rag. It was Carmen's brother Tony, smiling with an envious adoration at the yellow Cadillac. Tony had always been wild about cars. "Yes, sir. Fill her up?" Tony recognized him then and dropped the greasy rag. "Casey James." He ran out across the driveway. "Carmen told us you be home." He was raising the gun to shoot when he saw the boy only wanted to shake his hand. He hid the gun hastily. It wasn't Tony he'd come to kill. "We read all about your pardon." Tony stood grinning at him, caressing the side of the shining car lovingly. "Ashamed the way you were framed. We're all trying to make it up to you now." The boy's glowing eyes swept the long car. "Want me to fill her up?" "No," he muttered hoarsely. "Gabe, don't he still work here?" "Sure, Mr. James." Tony drew back quickly, as if the car had somehow burned his delicate brown hands. 8 to 5, but he isn't here yet. His home is that white stucco. "I know." He gunned the car. He lurched back into the street, roared across the bridge, skidded to a screaming stop in front of the white stucco. He dropped the gun into the side pocket of his coat and ran to the door, grinning expectingly. Gabe would be taken by surprise. The outsiders set out for him very cleverly, with all the manufactured evidence of being innocent of any crime at all, and Gabe wasn't likely to be armed. The door opened before he could touch the bell, but it was only Carmen. Carmen, pale without her makeup, but beautiful anyhow, wearing sleepily in sure pink pajamas that were half unbuttoned. She gasped when she saw him. "Casey!" Strangely, he was smiling. "I knew you'd come." She swayed toward him eagerly, as if she expected him to take her in his arms, but he stood still, thinking how she had watched him in the courtroom, all through the trial for killing her father, with pitiless hate in her dark eyes. He didn't understand it, but all puffy guts had somehow changed her. "Oh." She turned pink and buttoned her pajamas hastily. "No wonder you were staring. But I was so excited. I've been longing for you so. Come on in, darling. I'll get something on and make us some breakfast." "Wait a minute." He shook his head, scowling at her, annoyed at the outsiders. They had somehow cheated him. He wanted karma, but not this way. He wanted to fight Gabe to take her. He wanted her to go on hating him, so that he would have to beat her and frighten her. Old Barbara really had been too clever and done too much. "Where's Gabe?" He reached into his pocket to grip the cold gun. "I gotta see Gabe." "Don't worry, darling." Her tiny sugar shrugged becomingly. "Gabriel isn't here. He won't be here anymore. You see, dear, the state cops talked to me a lot when they were here digging up the evidence to cure you. Came over to me. You always been the one I loved. When I killed Gabe, he moved out. Living down at the hotel now. We're getting a divorce right away, so you don't have to worry about him. I gotta see him anyhow." "Don't be mean about it, darling." Her pajama was coming open again, but she didn't seem to care. "Come on in, and let's forget about Gabe. He's been so good about everything, I know. Just know he won't make us any trouble." "I'll make the trouble." He seized her bare arm. "Come along." "Darling, don't." She hung back, squirming. "You're hurting me." He made her shut up and dragged her out of the car. She wanted to go back to her robe, but he threw her in the back seat and climbed over to the wheel. He waited for her to try to get out so he could slap her down, but she only whimpered and sat there sniffling. Old Balloon Billy had ruined everything. He tried angrily to clash the gears as he started off, as it would damage the outsiders, but the transmission wouldn't clash. Anyway, the saucer ship was probably somewhere up beyond the moon by now. "There's Gabriel," Carmen sobbed. "There, crossing the street, going to work. Don't hurt him, please." He got in the car and veered across the pavement to run him down, but Carmen screamed and twisted at the wheel. Gabriel managed to scramble out of the way. He stopped on the sidewalk, hatless and breathless, but grinning stupidly. Sorry, mister, I guess it wasn't looking. Gabriel saw who he was. Why, Casey, we've been expecting you back. Seems you're a lucky one after all. Gabriel started towards the car, but he stopped when he saw the gun. His voice went shrill as a child's. What are you doing? Just gut-shooting another dirty greaser, that's all. Darling, Carmen snatched at the gun. Don't! He slapped her down. Don't strike her! Gabriel stood gripping the door of the car with both hands. He looked sick. His twitching face was bright with sweat, and he was gasping hoarsely for his breath. He was staring at the gun, his wide eyes dull with terror. Stop me! He smashed the fire of the gun into Carmen's face and grinned at the way Gabriel flinched when she screamed. This was more the way he wanted everything to be. Just try and stop me. I won't fight you, Gabriel croaked faintly. After all, we're not animals. We're civilized humans. I know Carmen loves you. I'm stepping out of the way, but you can't make me fight it. The gun stopped Gabriel. Clearly, though, he didn't fall. He stood there with some kind of run-down machine, with his stiffened hands clutching the side of the car. Die, damn you! Casey Jones shot again, kept on shooting until the gun was empty. The bullets hammered into the body, but somehow it wouldn't fall. He leaned to look at the wounds, at the broken metal behind the simulated slice of the face and the hot yellow hydraulic fluid running out of the belly, and recoiled at what he saw, shaking his head, shouting like any trapped and frightened beast. That thing! With a wild burst of animal ferocity, he hurled the gun to what was left of his plastic face. It toppled stiffly back there, and then something jangled faintly inside when it struck the pavement. It ain't human. But it was an excellent replica. The other thing, the one he thought was Carmen, gathered itself up from the bottom of the car, speaking gently to him with what now seemed clearly like the voice of old Barrel Belly. We had taken a great deal of trouble to make it the happiest one of your breed. Looked at him sadly with Carmen's limpid, dark eyes. If only you had kept your word. Don't, he came back from it, shivering. Don't kill me. We never kill, and murmured. You need never be afraid of that. Well, he sat trembling, climbed out of the car, and picked up the ruined thing that looked like Gabe, and carried it easily towards the Oasis garage. Now he knew this place was only a copy, somewhere not on Earth. When he looked up at the blue crystal sky, he knew it was only some kind of screen. He felt the millions of strange eyes beyond it, watching him like some queer monster in a cage. He tried to run away. He gunned the Cadillac back across the bridge and drove wildly back the way he'd come, on the Albuquerque Highway. A dozen miles out, an imitation construction crewman tried to flag him down, pointing at a sign that said the road was closed for repairs. He whipped around the barriers and drove the pitching car out across the imitation desert until he crashed into the bars. The end.